So here's an idea, okay? Just hear me out. What if we ban the AR-15? No, I'm just joking. I would never suggest that we ban America's favorite sporting rifle. Don't unsubscribe yet. Just give it a minute. There'll be a way better reason in a minute. You are watching the latest Gribley's Folly Sunday Antisocial Hour, that time on a rare occasion when I smoke my pipe and complain about humanity. While answering all of its questions, if you are a piece of humanity with a question for me, leave it down in the comments below with the hashtag AskGribs and I will answer any question. This week, the Sunday Antisocial falls on a Thursday. I don't know why, it's very complex. There's like moon phases involved. It's like Passover. Abraham Lincoln was trying to decide when the Sunday Antisocial should happen. He was like, I don't know, second Thursday in September. And that's what the Civil War was about, kids. Anyway, let's get to the topic du jour. In my Rossi Poker, which was my first brand new pipe in like a decade, I made a video about it. It's a really good purchase. I'm very pleased with this pipe. In my Rossi Poker, I am smoking 8-year-old, can we focus on this? Can we do this? 8-year-old Beck's Old Limey Bastard. We're always looking for something else in our tobacco, right? I want something sweet. I want something with grassy overtones. I want to taste beer and chocolate and Skittles and Pop-Tarts and all that stuff. No, I just want Old Limey Bastard. I always come back to it. So I was going to make an actual Sunday Antisocial last Sunday, but as you know, I'm a very sensitive person. My emotions are balanced on a razor's edge. And when there's a mass shooting, I get really pissed off. Obviously, the mass shooting happened last week. It was not on Sunday. I felt okay Sunday. I felt okay. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and make my video. I'm gonna be able to just talk about whatever, not have to focus on this. And then I read a story in the Washington Post. Since Uvalde, I have been struggling not to accept this feeling that I have that this is what we want. And I've long thought that like this is something we're willing to accept. Like clearly we're willing to accept this as a normal fact of life, to quote J.D. Vance. This is a fact of life in America. We just have school shootings. But this feeling that I have goes further than that. I since Uvalde, I think this is what we want. I have mentioned before that Columbine happened about a month before I graduated from high school in my little tiny town. The whole county has one high school, and we had SWAT team snipers on the football field and a chopper overhead doing Overwatch, I guess. It was a great day. I think every school kid of an age to understand what was going on was touched by what happened at Columbine. And those of us who were in our late high school years kind of realized like, oh, I'm really glad to be getting out now. But there was always this sense that things would change, that we would reach this crisis point, we would have a big one. We'd have a really big one, and the American people would not be able to take it anymore. And for better or worse, things would change. And then Sandy Hook happened. And things didn't change. In the lead up to Obama's election, I would go to gun shows and the line would be like out the door, down the street, around the block, because everyone thought this was their last chance to buy a gun, right? The assault weapons ban sunsetted in 2004, and here we were, the next, it was clear what was happening in the country. The next liberal president was going to come in and there would be a mass shooting and all guns would be banned. And then the liberal president came in and there were more mass shootings and there was Sandy Hook and nothing happened. I will self-disclose that at the time of Sandy Hook, I owned several weapons that would have been banned under the assault weapons ban. I had an assault rifle, but I also had handguns with high capacity mags. And I had bought my assault rifle for like $250 and I sold it in the craziness after Sandy Hook for like $1,500. So now I cannot claim to be a black rifle owner anymore, so I know I'm gonna lose a lot of my gun nut crowd here because I'm a FUD, right? Like I've only got regular guns. But the ox was in the ditch, right? I could keep this gun that would only be useful if like a foreign power invaded the country, or I could have $1,500. And I sold it thinking I would never be able to buy another one, that these bans were coming and it wouldn't happen. And I was okay with that. That was a moment where I had grown up a little bit, like 2A this and American men should own a rifle that, and it's also really nice to be able to make 4 or 5 car payments. So just for the sake of full disclosure, I'm gonna tell you what I actually believe on this issue, which is pretty rare for me. Normally I try not to take like real hard, firm stands because then things just get into an argument, right? Here we go. You ready? I still believe, in this moment, right now, I still believe in the abstract idea that the people of a free society should be armed to the extent that the government has to think twice about oppressing them. The idea that a bunch of fat 43-year-old dudes with bad ankles making videos in their garage are going to somehow successfully resist the next Holocaust, that is pure fantasy. However, I think that we also live in a world where we see government overreach at all levels all the time, and I think that especially, I don't know, for example, maybe there's some overzealous police officers. They might not like the color of the people that live in a certain neighborhood. They want to use all their special weapons and tactics that they got offloaded from the federal government's whatever. You got an MRAT driving down your street. Yeah, I think it's legitimate to say people should be armed against something like that, just so the Derek Chauvins of the world think twice. So it's important to hold on to our abstract ideals like right and wrong, or a higher power, or mathematics, like things that are intangible, that we can't touch, but still govern our behavior and personalities and all that. That's important. On the other hand, how important is the political abstract of an armed populace versus the people that are getting killed all the fucking time? What bothers me is not that we didn't ban assault rifles after Sandy Hook. That is not what bothers me. What bothers me is the fact that we did nothing. I don't know if banning assault rifles is the right thing to do. In fact, I think it's probably would just mostly be theater. Intellectually, I know prohibition never works, etc., etc. However, if your house is on fire and you're panicking, and instead of the fire extinguisher, you pick up your goldfish bowl and throw poor Freddy the goldfish into the flames because you're trying to put out the fire, later you're going to feel bad about that. You're going to be like, damn, that's stupid. I sacrificed Freddy, didn't do any good. But you'd still feel better than if you did nothing. The wrong decision is better than indecision. George Patton, of all people, said that a good plan executed now is better than a great plan executed later. Do something. The fact that we won't do anything is what is starting to make me think that we like this. Here's things you could do. You could ban the sale of assault weapons to people under the age of 25. Or whatever, pick an age, pick an arbitrary age, because right now it's 18. Do you know why the drinking age is 21? Because we wanted space between the driving age and the drinking age. Clearly, looking at the pattern of the highest profile shootings, we need some space between the teenage years and the assault rifle years. We have arbitrary limits on other rights. Why can't we limit this one? You want to own an AR-15? You got to be 25 years old, or the youngest age at which someone could be honorably discharged from regular military service, right? We're going to put you in the military and give you an M16. You got to be at least that age when you're out of the military to own an assault rifle. Like, what's the argument against that? Well, you'd be disenfranchising a bunch of 18-year-olds of their right to protect themselves from government overreach. Have you ever met an 18-year-old? Now, at this point, half of you are nodding your heads and half of you are like hovering over the unsub button. Gribbs, you gun-grabbing bastard, how could you say this? Here's where we're going to take a big turn and your roles are going to switch. All the people that say they need to own assault weapons because of government overreach and the incompetence of the bureaucratic states are reinforced by government overreach and the incompetence of the bureaucratic state. I read this piece in the Washington Post, and the administration at that high school in Georgia cost those kids their lives. 100%. You got two phone calls, one of them from the mother of the shooter. You had half an hour, and you pull the wrong kid out of class, you don't lock down the school, 4 people are dead. That is not the gun lobby's fault. I'm sorry. The gun lobby has a lot of blame here. That part, that's on y'all. Parkland was a better example. Nicholas Cruz bought that rifle legally. He exploited the lax gun laws, and then he exploited the lax security and the coward SRO that wouldn't go into the school to fight him. Let's not even get into Uvalde. Let's not even, like, if I were a parent in that situation, the cops on the perimeter, they need to be more worried about me. If my kid was in that school and I could hear gunshots and you're standing there doing nothing, you gotta shoot me to keep me out of the school. You got a bunch of dudes with rifles standing around for more than an hour while they're hearing this, and you tell me we don't want this. You got administrators talking to the mom on the phone for 10 minutes not locking down the school, and you're telling me we don't want this. Lest we forget the trail that most of these people leave. I mean, people like the Vegas shooter, Stephen, whatever his name was, that don't leave a trail. That is the rare exception. In every other case, after one of these things happens, we talk to everybody and they're like, yeah, literally, the guy that shot up Uvalde, his nickname was School Shooter. How many warning signs do you have to ignore? It's like every one of these is the sinking of the Titanic, this comedy of errors, this comedy of people just not doing their basic job, and it results in these horrible tragedies. I saw an interview on YouTube with a high school track coach that was assaulted by a student and like groped her ass and pushed her to the ground, and she was gonna report it to the police, and the administration said, no, don't do that. He wants to join the Marine Corps. You'll ruin his career. You can't do that to him. Then he went on to become a mass shooter. And she's like, yeah, I live with a lot of guilt over that. Yeah, you should. The FBI sent the local sheriff to this kid's house. And they're like, hey, did you threaten to shoot up your school? And he's like, no. And they're like, okay, cool, have a nice day. And then his father buys him an AR-15 for Christmas after the cops come to the house? Like, the only person in the entire situation that did the right thing was the meth head mom. The only person on the ground that day that did anything to actually stop the shooting was a student who closed the door. Not a teacher, not an administrator. The lives that were saved because a student did it. Now, I'm not saying that any individual wakes up that morning thinking, gosh, I really want a school shooting day. Like, except for the shooter, nobody from Wayne LaPierre to the guidance counselor in Georgia wakes up thinking, Wayne LaPierre is a bad example, but you know what I'm saying. But the systems that we have created enable this. We want it to happen so that then we can use it for our own. It means the media can get their clicks, both political sides can play to their bases, and the bureaucracy involved, like the school administrators and the sheriff's department and the FBI, we can all say, hey, we followed procedure. And that is how we reveal that the procedures are theater, right? The common sense gun law, or the, at my kids' school, they're like, oh, we closed the blinds so you can't see in. Really? Do you think a school shooter is going to pull up and be like, oh, I thought this was a school, but I don't see any kids inside? It's just theater. It's just the read Cormac McCarthy. We cannot protect ourselves from this kind of evil, from the kind of evil that is willing to play so far outside the bounds of the rules that good people follow every day. There is no protection against it. At least none that we're willing to do. Because here's what I'm ready for. I want National Guard troops at my kids' school. Let's do it. Like, if we're not going to do anything else, let's do that. Here's the other thing you do. Mandatory. Some point in middle school, maybe, mandatory. 2 semesters of serious psychology. Like, practical psychology. Hey, this is what depression looks like. This is what schizophrenia looks like. This is what all these disorders look like. Here's what to do if you are feeling this way. Here's what to do if someone you know is feeling this way. Well, we can't do that. There's no funding for that. Oh, okay. So we're doing nothing. I don't want my kids to feel like they're unsafe at school. I'm sorry. Breaking news. The kids know they're unsafe at school. It's the teachers that don't want to admit it. The first time I ever said, this must be something we're willing to accept, I said on this channel that this is our new normal. That school shootings and mass shootings in general is normal in American life. I got all these comments saying, no, I will never accept this as normal. J.D. Vance came out and said school shootings are a fact of life. He said this from behind his bulletproof glass that they had to put around him because his boss got shot on the campaign trail. He's right. This is a fact of life. He's got bulletproof glass. Our kids don't. I don't know what else to say. I've been thinking about the verse in Luke, which I haven't read in years and years and years, about the ox in the ditch, right? Which is, Christ is talking to some Pharisee assholes or whatever, and they're talking about like, oh, you gotta keep the Sabbath holy because that's the commandment. And so he says, hey, yeah, sure, but if your ox falls into a ditch on the Sabbath, you go and get it out, right? Like you understand that there's a lot at stake here, and you kind of think, hey, I think God wants me to stay alive and keep my farm and all that more than he wants me to not do a lick of work on the Sabbath. I looked it up, and the actual verse is, then he asked them, If one of you has a child or an ox that falls into a well on the Sabbath day, this is NIV, will you not immediately pull it out? My entire life, and I'm sure I've read it before, but my entire life, I never knew, why do we say the ox is in the ditch? If your kid is in the ditch, you're going to get him out. Except apparently we aren't.